I have a very satisfying career, but it was not always so. I'm going to share what I've done personally that's made all the difference to me. I'm Dr. Jonathan. I work with organizations to make them inclusive, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace inclusive. Get your pen and paper ready because we're talking about 5 career tips that have transformed my life. This is a very different episode. One, because I'm feeling a bit sentimental because we've just hit our 6th birthday and we're nearly at episode 300. 2, I've had a lot of nice feedback about me sharing some of my personal experiences from our birthday episode, and so I thought I'd keep the trend going. And 3, I get a lot of people asking me for career advice. How do I start a business? How do I work in inclusion? And it's not always the right question for them. I'm going to address some of these things here. But before we start, you should know that I grew up in an environment where no one really used the term career. People didn't have a career, they had a job. Jobs they didn't like, jobs they wanted to escape from. I also grew up in a community where people would get laid off, get fired, their jobs were vulnerable. And you know what? Sometimes it wasn't the economy, sometimes it wasn't the market. I heard stories of discrimination and prejudice from all sorts of people. Work was something that you needed, but it was very precarious. This is why you needed to get a so-called good job. My PhD builds on this idea, but in an empowering way, in a generative way, and not in a fearful way. It acknowledges that there is potential disadvantage in the workplace, and it explores culture, race, ethnicity, class, and lots more. It explores what I called minority, racial, and ethnic individuals, and it assumes that people in my study are hardworking, intelligent, capable, competent. It assumes that they're already in what people around me as a kid would call a good job. That meant a lot to me because you don't really come across research like that. That's one of the reasons they gave me the PhD. So before we talk about career advice, I want to talk about the difference between a career and a job. My use of the term career is loaded with assumptions. So let's say a career means that you get to do great work. This is a term that I borrowed from Professor Cal Newport in his book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. I talk about this book all the time. I think this book is so important, I gift it to young adults and to older kids. I give this book to people all the time. In this book, Professor Newport says that great work involves 3 things. 1, creativity. 2, impact. 3, control. This may not be your definition of great work, but this is what I buy into personally. I never really considered myself to be a creative person. I was an accountant. Well, I still am, so it never really goes away. This podcast is an example of my great work. I am creative. Coming up with this show and the content is a creative endeavor. I have an impact. Apart from my mission to help 1 million people, right now, I'm having a positive impact on you. And I have control. One of the reasons I don't have sponsors and I don't have adverts on this podcast is that I don't want anyone interfering with the editorial control. If you like this show, it's because of me. If you dislike this show, it's because of me. This is one example of great work that I do in what I would now call a career. I think anyone who has a satisfying career has the opportunity to be creative, to have an impact, and they're in control of the work that they do. There's a lot of assumptions built into this. The obvious one is that you want to be creative, you want an impact, and you want control over what you do. I say this because if you don't want these things, then you're not going to find this episode very useful. The other idea is that great work is of value to you. It's the kind of thing that would have meaning for you. This isn't really going to be of value for someone who doesn't want to engage in some kind of meaningful work by their own standards. And the other one is that you welcome some kind of personal challenge. Because a lot of what I'm going to say is not easy, it can be difficult. And you're going to have to believe that it's worthwhile by your own standards in a way that has value and meaning to you. So with that said, what are the tips I wish I knew? 1, don't follow your passion, find something you're willing to get good at, and then do that. You've heard me say this before, and I got it from the book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, and it made complete sense to me. Don't follow your passion, instead find something that you're willing to get good at and take the time to do that thing. That leads to sustainable satisfaction. The entire premise of this book is that follow your passion is not advice that the majority of people can successfully follow. The majority of people can be successful if they find something that they're willing to get good at and take the time to do that thing. I think this is useful because it also takes out some of the emotional highs and lows. It means you don't have to feel lovey-dovey about it every day, but you do expect to get good at something. That may be something that you value. It's certainly something that I value. The second thing is only take jobs if you desperately need the money or it helps you to develop rare and valuable skills. This is crucial, especially at the beginning of your so-called career. Some people say only take jobs if you learn something, but frankly, I never had that privilege. Sometimes I took a job for the money because I needed it. The real focus for me is to develop rare and valuable skills. I use this phrase all the time, and what I love is that you get to decide what that means based on your specific circumstances, and you can check for yourself. If it's rare, not many people will have it. If it's valuable, the market will reward it. You want a combination of both. So let's pick a boring example from my own life. The combination of skills required to be an accountant are rare and valuable. It's rare because not everyone has it. It's valuable because the market rewards it. My experience is the rarer and more valuable the skills you have, the less likely you're going to be desperate to take a job. This is a huge oversimplification, but it's worked that way for me in the face of potential disadvantage. Also, some of you aren't going to like the accountant example, and you're right not to like it. I chose it deliberately because being an accountant is rare, but some people will say it's a lot less valuable now, especially with the development of technology and AI. I don't think that undermines the principle. I think it means that you need to constantly develop rare and valuable skills. I'm doing it now. I'm always doing it. I'm always on a course or actively learning a new skill. I'm on a course right now that's helping me with a very specific part of my business that I want to leverage. And I don't know what to do. That's why I'm on a course, because this skill is rare and valuable. The beauty of this rule is that your personal shortcomings or limitations will indicate which skills that you need to develop. So for me, what happens is I typically hit a plateau. And this is a message that says, don't get frustrated. Learn skill X. And I find that to be a very useful way of dealing with these frustrations, plateaus. Sometimes you're just not growing or developing in the way that you want. Sometimes you're not getting what you think you deserve. Try and develop rare and valuable skills that will address those issues. By the way, you'll notice that I haven't spoken about money. I didn't want to dwell on it, but having rare and valuable skills means you'll be rewarded by the market. You will get paid a lot of money. 3 is make regular small bets on yourself, and a couple of big ones. I like to bet on myself to succeed because it means I'm growing, but it also means that I don't get bored. It builds confidence and it encourages you to believe in yourself. When I say a bet, I mean something that requires effort or risk that is likely to pay off now or in the future. Maybe it's a course, maybe it's a project, maybe it's applying for something. If you're not intimidated, it's probably not big enough to inspire you. In particular, I like asymmetric bets, things that have very little downside but huge potential upside. Common examples for me are this podcast, my daily writing habit. Both take effort. And the downside is no one checks out the podcast. No one reads my writing. Or let's make it even worse. People dislike it and people spend lots of time telling me that they don't like it. Those are 2 annoying things that could happen. But what's the upside? I help 1 million people. The upside is people like you contact me to help them with their specific problems. And by the way, this podcast is 6 years old. My entire business was built from this podcast. All the FTSE 100 clients, all the Fortune 500 clients, all the small businesses, all the medium-sized businesses, all the workshops, all the consultancy, all the talks, all the research, it all came from this. Motivated people will seek you out. Someone is looking for a person like you to help them. Place a small bet on yourself to make it easier for them to find you. Then, later on, place some big bets. The 4th thing is only trust the advice of people who have 1, achieved what you want, or 2, earned the right to a valuable opinion. If neither of these things is obvious, don't trust them. There are people who are older than you, more experienced than you, people who genuinely care about your well-being, who are not in a position to give you advice because they haven't done the thing you want, or they haven't earned the right to a valuable opinion on the specific issue. Growing up, I heard lots of things about work and the workplace, coming from people who didn't have a successful career by their own standards. After a while, I realized that they weren't always well informed in the thing that I wanted. I avoided a lot of mistakes by not listening to those people after a while, and it did take a while. I've got radically different results now. To be clear, I'm not talking about disrespect to other people. I'm talking about discernment with where you place your attention. Please make sure that you apply everything I've just said to me. Please make sure you apply this to everyone. The other big one that I do is I avoid advice from people whose vision of your future is smaller than yours. This can save you years. Some people just don't think that you're going to be all that. You may have a big vision for your future. You get to decide on what big is. You get to decide on how high you would like to go. Some people just can't imagine that for you, and that's okay, but bear in mind, if those people give you advice, it's in line with their vision for your future, not your vision for your future. Now, on the flip side, imagine you have someone in your life who thinks that you're not dreaming big enough. What they say may feel intimidating in a good way. They may see something in you that you don't see in yourself yet. Maybe you should pay attention to them. The fifth and final thing is massively underrated. Find a way to contribute to your marketplace without expecting anything direct in return. So many of the people I admire think big. They don't just improve their company, they improve the entire market. They improve the entire industry. They contribute in a way that's unique to them, but it benefits everyone, or at least the people around them. I'll save the examples for another show, but think about what that does to your approach to work. It makes you unselfish. Imagine if what you were doing was so impactful that it benefits everyone in your field. If you're a writer, imagine that your work benefits writers in your region. If you're a lawyer, imagine that your work benefits lawyers in your region. If you're working in inclusion, imagine that your work benefits everyone working in inclusion in your region. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be regular. You get to decide what that means. This will be an effort, but it will be easier if your work is generally aligned with your personal values. This is why we have the podcast. This is why we have the book club. This is why I write every day on social media. It benefits my clients. It benefits other people too. It means that I get to have a massive impact. It also stops me from being selfish. It makes me want to contribute to something greater than myself. And for me, the people who are the real pioneers, the real leaders, this is a perspective that I find that they take. As I said, this is an unusual episode of this show. I'm not talking about research. I'm not talking about data. I'm just talking about my personal experiences, what I think, what I believe, what has been working for me. And these are just some light touch ideas just to get you started. And by the way, everything I've said, I'm doing it myself right now, and my life transforms every 6 months. Every 6 months, my life changes in a dramatic way because I do these things, and it becomes a virtuous cycle. This allows me to be creative. This allows me to be impactful. This allows me to be in control. And all of this is working for me, and I hope at least some of this can work for you. And by the way, the beauty of all of this is that these are things that are within your control right now. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? 1. Great work involves creativity, impact, and control. 2. Develop rare and valuable skills to do more great work. And 3. Bet on yourself to build confidence. So what do you think? What could you be doing, something small that could impact your entire industry? Get in touch or leave a message. I would love to hear from you. If you've learned something from today's show, then give us a 5-star review and a comment wherever you're listening to the podcast. It helps other people like you to find the show. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.